Assalamu Alaikum everyone, welcome to our channel. Today, we will be discussing the topic of Muslim and dogs. Dogs are a beloved pet for many people, but what does Islam say about owning dogs and interacting with them? We will be exploring this topic from a Quranic and Hadith perspective, as well as the opinions of Islamic scholars. Some of the scholars we will be referencing include Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, and Ibn Taymiyyah. The Islamic perspective on dogs is an interesting topic that has been the subject of much debate and discussion among Muslims. Dogs have been kept as pets by humans for thousands of years, but in Islam, dogs are considered impure animals. This belief is based on a hadith narrated by Abu Hurairah, where the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "The angels do not enter a house in which there is a dog or a picture." Sahih Bukhari 3225. Many Muslims take this hadith very seriously, and as a result, they avoid interacting with dogs as much as possible. However, it's important to note that this hadith does not mean that Muslims cannot interact with dogs at all. It just means that Muslims should be cautious about cleanliness when doing so. There are a few reasons why dogs are considered impure in Islam. One of the main reasons is that dogs are known to eat impure things, such as feces. Additionally, dogs have been known to carry diseases that can be harmful to humans. For these reasons, Muslims are advised to be careful when interacting with dogs. However, it's also important to note that the impurity of dogs does not necessarily mean that they are evil or bad animals. In fact, dogs have been used for many useful purposes throughout history. For example, they have been used for hunting, guarding, and even therapy. In fact, there are many hadiths that mention the benefits of dogs. For example, in a hadith narrated by Abdullah ibn Umar, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Whoever keeps a dog that is not a hunting dog, a guardian dog, or a farm dog, 1 kairat of reward will be deducted from his reward each day." Sahih Bukhari 5519. This hadith suggests that there are certain types of dogs that are permissible to keep, and that keeping them can even bring rewards. So, what are the guidelines for interacting with dogs in Islam? Firstly, Muslims should be careful to wash their hands after interacting with a dog, especially before praying. Additionally, Muslims should avoid allowing dogs to lick them, as the saliva of dogs is considered impure. It's also important to note that there are some situations where interacting with dogs is necessary. For example, if a person has a service dog, they may need to interact with it regularly. In such cases, it's important for Muslims to follow the guidelines mentioned above, and to be cautious about cleanliness. The topic of owning dogs in Islam is a complex one that has been the subject of much discussion among scholars. While dogs are considered impure in Islam, there are certain circumstances in which it is permissible to keep them as pets. Imam Malik, one of the four major Sunni Islamic scholars, was of the opinion that it is permissible to keep a dog for hunting, guarding, and herding purposes. He believed that dogs could be useful for these tasks, and that their benefits outweighed their impurity. Similarly, Imam Shafi'i, another major Sunni Islamic scholar, allowed for dogs to be kept as pets as long as they are trained and used for a legitimate purpose, such as hunting or guarding. He believed that dogs could be loyal and faithful companions, and that they could be useful in a variety of situations. Dogs should not be kept solely for companionship purposes. Additionally, the dog must be kept in a clean and hygienic environment. Muslims should be careful to wash their hands after interacting with the dog, and they should avoid allowing the dog to lick them. It's also important to note that there are certain breeds of dogs that are considered to be more permissible in Islam than others. For example, some scholars have stated that it is permissible to keep hunting dogs, such as greyhounds or salukis, because they have a useful purpose. However, it's important to note that this is a matter of scholarly interpretation, and opinions may vary. Another important consideration when owning a dog in Islam is the issue of prayer. Muslims are required to perform ablution, or wudu, before praying, and any impurity on the body can invalidate the prayer. This means that if a person interacts with a dog and gets dog saliva on their clothes or body, they may need to repeat their ablution before praying. Interacting with dogs. Thirdly, it's important to note that touching a dog does not invalidate one's wudu or ablution. This is a common misconception among some people who believe that touching a dog renders them impure. Muslims are free to touch dogs as long as they take the necessary precautions to maintain cleanliness. One important precaution that Muslims should take when interacting with dogs is to wash their hands afterwards. This is especially important before performing prayers, as Muslims are required to be in a state of purity when praying. Washing the hands with soap and water is sufficient to remove any impurities that may have been transmitted from the dog. Another precaution that Muslims should take when interacting with dogs is to avoid allowing them to lick them. The saliva of dogs is considered impure in Islam, and allowing a dog to lick one's skin or clothing can transfer impurities to the body. Muslims should avoid this by keeping a safe distance from dogs and discouraging them from licking. It's also important to note that Muslims should be mindful of their clothing when interacting with dogs. If a dog jumps on a person or rubs against their clothing, it can transfer impurities to the fabric. Muslims should be careful to avoid this by wearing clothing that is easy to wash and by avoiding close contact with dogs. While interacting with dogs can be a sensitive issue for some Muslims, it's important to remember that there are ways to do so in a manner that is in accordance with their faith. By taking the necessary precautions, such as washing the hands and avoiding contact with dog saliva, Muslims can maintain purity and cleanliness while interacting with these animals. The story of the companions and the dog is a beautiful reminder of the compassion and kindness that Muslims should show towards all creatures, including dogs. The story is a testament to the fact that even though dogs are considered impure in Islam, Muslims should still treat them with respect and empathy. According to the story, a group of companions were traveling together on a journey. As they were walking, they came across a thirsty dog, panting and exhausted from the heat. The dog was so thirsty that it was struggling to move. One of the companions was moved with compassion for the dog and decided to help. He took off his shoe and filled it with water from a nearby stream. He then gave the water to the dog, allowing it to drink and quench its thirst. The other companions were amazed by the act of kindness and asked the companion why he had done it. He replied that he had done it out of compassion for the dog, and that he believed that all creatures, even dogs, deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. Allah was so pleased with the act of kindness that he granted the companion paradise and forgave his sins. This shows us that Allah values acts of kindness and compassion towards all creatures, and that even small acts of kindness can have a significant impact. This story has become a well-known parable in Islamic culture, often used to teach children the importance of showing compassion towards all creatures. It serves as a reminder that Islam is a religion of compassion and empathy, and that Muslims should strive to show kindness to all beings, including animals. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, himself was known to be kind to animals, often showing compassion to cats, dogs, and other creatures. He once said, "Whoever is kind to the creatures of Allah is kind to himself." Sahih Bukhari 2363. The story of the companions and the dog also highlights the importance of empathy and compassion towards all creatures, including those that are considered impure. While dogs are considered impure in Islam, Muslims should still treat them with kindness and respect, as they are living creatures that deserve to be treated with dignity and empathy. Dogs are considered impure animals in Islam, but Muslims can still interact with them, and even keep them as pets as long as certain guidelines are followed. We should be cautious about cleanliness when interacting with dogs and avoid allowing them to lick us. However, we should also show compassion towards dogs, as demonstrated by the story of the companions and the dog. By following these guidelines and showing kindness to dogs, we can live in harmony with them while still maintaining our Islamic beliefs.